Dean Curry here, Fantasy Football, RSVP. So let's get right to it with Week 6 of the NFL. The season's just flying by, flying by, flying by. Let's talk about Week 6, and I really like Ryan Tannehill. I've been talking about Ryan Tannehill, it seems like every week, talking about Ryan Tannehill, and it's amazing. The guy's still in a lot of waiver wires. It's incredible. You know, a lot of people just are not sold on him. I mean, the guy's putting up crazy numbers, 21 to 28, three touchdowns, 35 points, depending on your scoring system, 30 plus points. The guy's just putting up numbers. I mean, at some point, you got to give the guy respect. And, he's putting up numbers against Buffalo's defense, which is pretty good. Okay, so the guy's putting up numbers. They're looking really good. A.J. Brown's back. They got Jonnu Smith. They got a great running game, good defense, lots of opportunities there. Tannehill's he's just putting up numbers. The guy looks great. And so I really think Ryan Tannehill, not a lot needs to be said. We've been talking about Tannehill quite a bit. As far as who else, same first name, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I've been saying this week after week, and people are like, oh, he's going to come down. He's going to come down. I'm like, this guy is getting hotter and hotter every week. The guy puts up 22 to 28, over 300 yards, several touchdowns. I mean, he's doing it, 30 points. He's doing it every single week, 35 points, 26 points, 25 points. Preston Williams, this guy's coming on. You can actually pick him up in your waiver. Devontae Parker, but they're spreading the ball around. The team's really playing well. I really, really like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I know Tua's going to come in at some point, but how do you find Ryan Fitzpatrick off the field? I mean, the guy's looking amazing. I really think you got to go with him. As far as running backs, that's right for quarterbacks. As far as running backs concerned, I really like Justin Jackson. I wanted to kind of see first, how the timeshare was going. But what people don't realize is, really Justin Jackson was the number 2. He was injured a couple of weeks, and that's why he wasn't the number 2. Then Eckler goes out. And it just looks like they're kind of leaning towards Justin Jackson. I mean, 15 carries, that pretty much says it. Weren't quite sure what direction was going to go in between two running backs, but, 15 carries. He's got 5 catches, 23 yards. I mean, that's almost RB1 numbers, And it just looks like, he really was the number 2 coming into the season. So I'm not really that surprised. But he was injured. A lot of people didn't know that, but he was. As far as other running backs, this one's an easy one. Alexander Madison. Hopefully some of you, I've told a lot of people that on the waiver wires in the leagues where you go from first to last, and it doesn't reset every week, that's really how commissioners should run their league. When they keep resetting based on your record, it's just too many chances. There has to be a consequence for always using the waiver wire. I just think it's kind of an unfair system. So I actually like the system where they, when you're first and on the waiver wire, then you go to last and it doesn't reset. You stay last. And every year I save up my waiver wires for a situation like this, a Madison, or something like that. And I basically use the waiver twice a year. And every year I get like a star player by just, going from 6th to 5th to 4th. And as soon as there's a big injury, boom, I'm right in there and I can use my waiver wire. And you'll get like 2 studs a year doing that. But you can't use your waiver wire you could use the waiver wire, but not the waiver wire order. Just wait for the waivers to clear and then pick up your players, afterwards. And yes, you're going to lose out on players that way, but to get a star player, you should only use that waiver wire order twice a year. Because if you wait it out, you got to be patient in fantasy football. If you wait it out, you will get a star. And here's a perfect example. Cook's probably going to be out this week. You pick up Alexander Madison, but let's say Cook really got injured, and he was going to be out 4 or 5 weeks. You pick up, Alexander Madison, and boom. I mean, this is going to be like a 1 week rental. So I'm really talking about someone longer term. But that's certainly, how you want to play your thing. But Alexander Madison, I mean, that's just a gimme. He should be on everyone's waiver wire if you have room. Sometimes you don't have room. As far as wide receivers are concerned, I'm not really one to play any New York Jets right now for obvious reasons. The team's just a mess. Letting go of Mosley, Adams, now Le'Veon Bell. I mean, this team, I don't get it. I'm a New Yorker, so I root for New York teams, outside of fantasy football. And, it's really rough when you give away like Mosley and Adams and you give away Le'Veon Bell. I mean, what are the Jets doing? And you're keeping the coach. And no disrespect to, the coach, but, you're letting go of all your great players and none of them are getting along with the coach and they're all saying the same thing. And look, I'm not in the locker room. I don't know what's going on. I have nothing against, Adam Gase, but it just doesn't seem like it's working out. I'm just being honest. Sure, he's a great coach. It's just not working out. As far as James, the wide receiver I want to talk about is Jamison Crowder. It's hard not to notice that this guy's getting 12, 13, 14, 10, 11 targets. And no matter who's throwing to him, it's a very big part of their offense. The guy's putting up 8 and 116. A TD, 10 targets last week. I mean, sometimes it's over 10 targets. It just seems that they're using the wide receiver quite a bit. So I really like Jamison Crowder. I think you got to definitely stick with him. As far as a very sneaky play, I think, is Sammy Watkins going down with a hamstring injury for a couple of weeks. I really like Mecole Hardman for the Chiefs. I think it's a really, good. I mean, he had 2 receptions for 50 yards. But what people don't realize is he had four targets and 6 targets and 3 targets like the last 3 weeks. So this guy is actually being used in the offense. And he's putting up actually decent, yards, like 80 yards in a game, 4 catches for 80 yards. Last week, 2 catches for 50. He's being used in the offense. Now with Sammy Watkins out, probably for a couple of weeks with his hammy, I got to believe Hartman's going to come in and receive a lot of those targets. So his, 3 or 4 receptions or 4 or 5 targets is probably going to get a bump to maybe 5, 6, 7 receptions and maybe 8, 9, targets. And the guy gets a lot of yards. So he's implemented into that offense. So I think it's a good, 2-week rental if you need someone that's going to come in. I really kind of like that one. As far as tight end, I'm going to go, mentioned Ryan Tannehill earlier. I'm going to mention Jonnu Smith. I've been talking about him all training camp. I talked about him in the draft. I told everyone that this guy's going to come on and if you want a solid guy that has a high floor. When I say high floor, not everyone knows what that means. I'll explain. It means he's probably going to get you a certain amount of targets, a certain amount of receptions, and a certain amount of yards. And this is a guy that also is pretty good red zone target. The guy has a knack for he got 2 touchdowns today rather. So in 5 catches, 40 yards, 2 touchdowns. This guy is almost a guaranteed, not every week. I mean, there's going to be weeks he doesn't do it, but he's almost guaranteed to get you 5 catches, 40 or 50 yards. That's 10 points. You have a tight end that consistently gives you 10 points, and then when you throw in a couple of touchdowns, he's a big red zone target. But I gotta tell you, this guy worked out with Tannehill the entire COVID break down in Florida. They were working out 2-3 times a week, okay? And they were right next to each other working, and people don't realize how fast this guy is. I don't think you've seen the best of him. I think there's going to be weeks this guy gets 8 to 10 targets. I mean, he could get Kelsey type numbers. I mean, this guy is athletic. He's one of the fastest tight ends in the league, if not the fastest. Okay, or at least in the top 2 or 3. And he's one of the hardest guys to tackle after the catch. He gets a lot of yards after the catch, and he's extremely athletic. They haven't quite found the recipe for using him yet, but they talked about it in the offseason. The coaches talked about it in the offseason. I think this guy's numbers are going to climb significantly, and he should be on your team, Anyway, moving right along. For defenses, we're going to do the same thing. As I mentioned, I am a New York Jets fan, but they're a complete mess, okay? I'm a New York fan. I root for the Jets, Giants, Buffalo, whatever. But they're a complete mess. So right now they lost Bell, and the team's it's just having turmoil. The coach, players are talking about the coach. I mean, the coach isn't getting along with a lot of the players. I'd like to think that it works out, but right now they're a mess. So any team playing them, defense is a good play. And right now the Dolphins, are playing. Actually, the Dolphins have a pretty good defense. They got 2 great corners. Their defense is a little underrated. I mean, everyone knows they have good corners, but their overall defense isn't too bad. Even though they sometimes give up points in certain games, their defense has actually played well in a few games, and they're coming together. It really takes a while for a defensive unit to come together. But they got 2 great corners. And they're playing the Jets, and the Jets are just an absolute mess right now. So I think the Dolphins are an easy play this week. And I'm really not playing too many giant players. Maybe Slayton, stuff like that you could look at. Because I would rather be a week too late than a week too early. And right now, the Giants just aren't playing great football. I mean, they looked a little better against Dallas, but can you really count that? Everyone's putting up 35, 40 points on Dallas. So I don't know if you could really count that, but, I would probably wait until they have a new coach, new offense. It's a lot to take in. Danny Dimes is throwing 3-4 touchdowns, every other game last year. This year, he's not even coming close to that. I'm not blaming anyone or anything. It's just they're not quite rolling yet. So I would be very, very careful of their receivers. But I really do like their kicker, Graham Gano. Graham Gano has hit 12 of 13 field goals, and the only field goal he missed was from 50-plus yards. Okay, it was a really long field goal, and he's hit all his extra points. And last game, he hit 3 from over 50 yards. So this guy, and the Giants, are playing Washington, and right now the Giants are having a little bit of a hard time putting the ball in the end zone. That's a perfect recipe of what you want. Okay, that's a perfect recipe of what you want. A team that is starting to move the ball against a softer team like Washington. Giants should be able to move the ball a little bit, have a hard time getting it in the end zone. There you go. And this guy's just hitting field goals left and right. Graham Cano put up 20 points last week. So I really think, that's a great play. Let's talk about our company here at Fantasy Football RSVP.com. That's our website. You could actually speak to me directly on Skype for 7 minutes. You can email me your team each week, and we could go over who you should pick for your roster. And you could also email me once a week and ask me about your team as far as trading. And I really have a knack for getting trades and getting people to agree to trades. I just have a crazy knack for it, how to formulate them and stuff like that. And you become part of a VIP club here at our company, Fantasy Football RSVP, and it costs $7.77 a month. which is basically like $2 a week, you know, and it actually does support the channel here and support our podcast on iTunes, Google Play Music, and everything that we do here at the company, so we could keep bringing you great information so you could win your league. And you go on fantasyfootball.rsvp.com and you basically sign up and become part of the VIP, become part of the chat room in Facebook and different things like that. So I want to wish everyone a tremendous week 6 fantasy football. This season is just flying by. Hopefully we get the whole season in. That would be absolutely wonderful. I'm Dean Curry. This is Fantasy Football, RSVP.com, and I want everyone to have yourself a wonderful day.